Vice President Joe Biden would be the oldest person elected president if he's victorious next November. Mayor Pete Buttigieg would be the youngest. Despite their roughly 40-year age difference, the two candidates are locked in a battle for elderly voters in Iowa. The Biden campaign has been working overtime to keep their support in the key early voting state. CBS News campaign reporter Bo Erickson joins me now from Des Moines, Iowa. Thank you so much for being with us, Bo. So let's get started here. How important is it for candidates to win the support of voters over 65, both nationally and in Iowa?
Well, hi, Catherine. You're right. There is a battle brewing for the baby boomer vote here in Iowa between Joe Biden and Mayor Pete Buttigieg. And to answer your question, it is very important that elderly voters show up for these two candidates and other candidates if they want to find success here in the caucus about a month away. It's important because elderly voters show up at caucus and at other elections at a much higher rate than other groups. In 2018, at the midterms here, according to the Iowa Secretary of State's office, almost 80% of registered voters 65 and older actually voted. That is way higher than any other group, and it actually makes up a large share of the total vote. Voters over 65 made up almost 1/3 of all votes cast here in 2018. So if Joe Biden and Mayor Pete, they want to find success here, they have to capture the imagination of the baby boomers, the silent generation, and even the greatest generation.
So how exactly has Buttigieg remained competitive with older voters in Iowa despite that youth and relative inexperience?
That's one way to put it. It's actually interesting hearing and talking to both Buttigieg and Biden supporters and people considering both of them. They cite age and experience as positive and negatives for both candidates. And so sometimes they do it in the same breath as well. Mayor Pete talks a lot about his policies that will impact elderly voters, including his Gray New Deal, and he also talks about ensuring Social Security to be around for generations to come. But with Joe Biden, you get a little bit more of his sense of charm. He's kind of one of the same amongst his contemporaries at a lot of his events there, and he kind of woo them that way, saying, "I've been around the block before. You know me. You trust me. Let's go on day one here."
So what's the Biden campaign doing to combat Buttigieg's surge to capture the support of voters over 65?
The Biden campaign is hesitant to say that they are just mainly focusing on the 65 and older group. They say they have a broad group of support. But when you look around the room, a lot of his people who are coming to check him out look more like Joe Biden's generation versus Pete Buttigieg's generation. The way they're trying to, though, entice these older voters out to commit to caucus for them is they are going on mostly rural tours throughout Iowa here. We are now going to be on our third swing through Iowa in just this month, and all rural areas. And if you look at the demographics in just rural America, there's much older voters there, but they also vote at much higher rates, as I said before. Joe Biden uses his grandfatherly charm, too, to kind of appeal to their sense of family when they sit in their seats. And that is something that, as Pete Buttigieg and other candidates can do as well, he just kind of disarms people talking about their grandchildren and thinking about them that way, too. He grovels with them about being too old. Many voters tell me that they do not like that dig at him, and they almost become defensive of him. And when they see them, they say, you know, this guy can be president.
Well, you've got boots on the ground there. What have you heard from voters about how they will eventually choose a candidate?
So it's interesting, at the beginning of this week, we saw the national polls. The CBS national poll has Joe Biden leading seniors 65 and older with 39% of that vote. It's actually his largest coalition. But here in the state, it's Pete Buttigieg who leads the older voters. So at the beginning of the week, they both held campaign events in a small Iowa town called Perry. And there were a lot of overlap between voters that went to first the Pete Buttigieg event and then the Biden event. And I just spoke to 5 of them after going to both events, and I said, how will you choose between these 2 men? They say their policies are somewhat similar. They're kind of tracking that middle approach here, and so they think it's going to end up being a personality contest and see who you can kind of win over. At the end of the day, those 5 voters that I talked to who are going back between Buttigieg and Biden, they said they were leaving that night, going into this holiday week, still undecided and wanting to learn more about these 2 candidates.
Bo Erickson in Des Moines, thank you.
Thank you.